I'm Reverend Michelle Johnson, and welcome to Wednesday's Word of Truth. The title of this episode is Advent, the Forethought of God's Mercy. It's based on the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verses 1 and 2, that read, "Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem, and proclaim to her that her hard service has been completed, that her sin has been paid for, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins." When we pay close attention, we notice that Isaiah chapter 40 reflects the beginning of a shift in the countenance of God towards God's people. The previous 39 chapters of Isaiah certainly had passages of comfort and hope. However, there was a strong tone of judgment and warning throughout the sections as well. It is in Isaiah 40 that we begin to catch a glimpse of the fullness of the glory of God's mercy. Beginning with Isaiah 40, the tone shifts to a predominance of comfort and blessings towards God's people. Here we clearly see the prophet as the instrument of God's judgment and compassion. It's as if God says through the prophet, "That's enough," and brings an abrupt halt to the chastisement of the people, and declares that their time of suffering has come to an end. This is not because the people have figured out what right looks like, not at all. It is because God is tired of their suffering. This helps us to understand that God's mercy is not God's way of ignoring our sin. It is God's way of providing us a way out of our sin, such that the imminent self-destruction of our sin will be averted. This is no small gesture caused by the kindness of God's heart. To the contrary, it is the salvific act offered on our behalf that results in the breaking of God's heart. Because in order to avert our sin-caused self-destruction, God's only alternative was to offer up God's own Son as a sacrifice in our place. This was not a swift shoot-from-the-hip decision. God thought long and hard about how to save our self-destructive lives. I know this because the Bible says in Matthew's record of the Gospel, chapter 1, verse 17, that Jesus came through 42 generations, which says to me that there were at least 42 breaks in Jesus's genealogical line where God could have changed heaven's mind. The long short of the story is that before we chose to sin, God thought through the salvific sacrifice of Jesus dying on a criminal's cross to save us from our sin. So the Advent story is the fulfillment of the forethought of God's merciful act of saving us from an eternal hell. It is not a storybook to be read. It is His story to be told over and over and over again. O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel. I'm Reverend Dr. Michelle Johnson, and you have been listening to Wednesday's Word of Truth. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Join me next week for another segment of Wednesday's Word of Truth. Thank you for listening.